and we'll get started with our hot cross buns. Now, if you jump onto Cookie Doo and you search hot cross buns, you'll see there are lots and lots of different variations. There are apple and cinnamon and chocolate and plain and all sorts of different ones. Now, this recipe is basically it's actually off the recipe community. So this is where our own consultants and customers and people out there with Thermomixes upload their own recipes too. So it's a free community and you can import them to Cookie Doo. So next month, we actually have some Cookie Doo sessions where we'll be showing you exactly how to do all of this, how to import recipes, how to edit them and all that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, chat with your consultant or have a look on our link tree. But basically, I've popped this one onto my Thermomix and this is what I'm going to use. It is really similar to the Cookie Doo one. There's just a few little changes, but those little changes make a big change at the end to the texture, really making them feel like commercial hot cross buns. So I'm going to hit start cooking. You can't see my screen fantastically on Zoom, so I'm just going to talk you through it a little bit. But basically, the first thing I need to pop in is 270 grams of water. If you haven't, or who here has done any dough work before? Maybe not hot cross buns, but have you made pizzas? Have you made bread rolls? Anything using yeast? Yes, some have. Pop it into the chat box if you can. Chat box is a really good way for me to get a bit of an idea of what you're saying.
Yeah, Vicky has, Linda has, Tash has, Gemma has, I think.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you all must be pretty familiar then with how it all works. Basically, your water needs to be warm enough to activate the yeast and make it grow. So this is 5 teaspoons of yeast, so it's quite a little bit. We do make a pretty big batch of hot cross buns. That's why we need a little bit more. And this just heats at 2 minutes, 37 degrees, and speed 2. So this initial stage is all you need to do. Get your yeast in there, get your water on. You've got 2 minutes now to go and get all of your other ingredients ready for your hot cross buns. And then you throw everything in and you're good to go. So what we're going to do next is pop in baker's flour. If you've all done dough, you should all be pretty well familiar with baker's flour. It has more gluten. It's a slightly different to just your normal plain flour that you buy at the shop. Whenever you're doing dough work, making breads and things like that, baker's flour will give you, it's what gives your bread the shape and rise and all that sort of thing. So get yourself some baker's flour. If you are local, we have got wholesalers like Dawson Wholesale, where you can buy a 12 kilo bag or a 25 kilo bag of this, heaps cheaper than the supermarket. And you'll be surprised how quickly you'll go through it when you start making bread regularly. But it's a really, really good way just to keep that grocery bill down. All the little things, if you can save a little bit of money on all those little everyday items, you'll be amazed at what you can save at the end of the week. So baker's flour will go in. I have our ingredients sort of measured out here, but we have in here milk powder. That's a secret ingredient. Milk powder, nutmeg, cinnamon, or you can use allspice and cinnamon or mixed spice and cinnamon. We've got a bit of sugar, and I think that's it. If you are doing, I'll see in a minute when I look at the list, but if you're making these chocolate instead of sultana, you can swap out those spices for cocoa or go half and half or something like that. It's a really, really nice little addition if you're going to make chocolate hot cross buns. But for these ones, that's our little mix. This recipe calls for bread improver, and it is the secret to getting them nice and soft and fluffy. You can buy bread improver from the shops. It is full of lots and lots and lots of little ingredients, and it doesn't last all that long. So if you're after a bit more of a natural side, the apple cider vinegar acts really, really similar to bread improver, but it is just a bit of a softer ingredient to use in your cooking, and one you've probably already got in the cupboard. So this is nice and warm. You can see it has all mixed together now. That's all good to go. I'm going to click through this next. Now we're going to pop in our 550 grams of baker's flour. If you wanted to make these a bit healthier or change them up a little bit, you could do a little bit of wholemeal flour. It would make them a bit less commercial feeling. So be careful how much you adjust it. You're going to see in a minute when we show Colette's hot cross buns, she's doing a gluten-free version. So you'll see a little bit more about some different ways to alter these in a minute. 550 grams. And obviously my scales are on, weighing this all in. It is just the same as a guided recipe. It is just one that I have added in myself. And our little mix before, just so I don't miss anything, was salt, milk powder, sugar, cinnamon, and nutmeg. So I'm going to tip all of those things in. I'm going to tip our little, about 2 teaspoons of bread improver, apple cider vinegar in. And our last one is 45 grams of soft butter. So I'm going to tip that in as well. And we are done. Now, go across over here, and we're going to knead this on the dough function for 8 minutes. So it is a pretty long knead. I'm going to click this over here, and I'm going to go dough function, 8 minutes. And start. Now, this recipe, and 2 sort of different reasons here for this. A lot of your hot cross bun recipes will say, knead your dough. It is usually a long knead, so 6 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. At the end of that knead, take your dough out and mix all of your sultanas in. I'm someone who, the most important thing to me in the kitchen is just saving time. I don't have time. I'm really, really time poor, and my hands-on time is really important to me. So rather than kneading all of my sultanas in at the end, I actually weigh mine out beforehand, and during the last 30, maybe 40 seconds of the knead, I just tip them in through the top hole in the Thermomix. So they get a little bit of a knead through, and they start to go through the dough. They still need to be mixed through by hand a little bit at the end, but much less work than if you to do the whole lot at the very, very end. It does break up a few of the sultanas. So try both ways is my suggestion, and see what you like. Some people prefer that authentic kneading them in right at the end. Some people don't mind in that last 30 seconds. It doesn't make a difference. So try them for yourself and see what works. I'm going to let this, I'll let this go through, and I'll pop these in. Now, once these come out, I'm just going to grab this out to show you. Once these come out, I am going to pop them on to this thing. Does anyone have one of these handy in their kitchen? Yes. Beautiful. You guys all do dough. You all know what I'm talking about. So these are our Thermomix. These are a lifesaver when it comes to doing hot cross buns and all this sort of stuff. So I'll whack this out on my bench, put the dough on this, and then just wrap it up, and I'm all done. Knead through my sultanas, any that are sticking out, and wrap this up. Now, this first proof needs about 15. Oh, yes, go.
Can I just ask you, this should be part of the business kit, shouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be good if they were?
Yeah.
We have on tonight Vicky and Michelle, who have just jumped on board to earn themselves Thermomix. So a big welcome in, ladies. I'm glad that you are on and watching. So they are now part of our team as consultants, and they're jumping on tonight to learn a little bit more and starting all of their training. When you start as a consultant, you get a business kit. It's $125, and there's about $350 worth of product in that. One of those things is this Thermomat, a thermo server, heaps of other stuff as well. But we think it's an essential. When you're cooking in your Thermomix, you need to be doing dough, whether it be gluten-free dough or whether it be dairy-free, whatever it might be. Dough is such a valuable thing to be able to make at home, and these make your life so much easier. So once my dough is done, I'll wrap it in this and let it prove. These actually have microfibers inside them that will help insulate heat. So even if it's a bit chillier at your place, this will help your dough still to rise. If it is really cool or you need it to really speed up, you can turn your oven on just for a minute. Just let your oven get a little bit warm. Turn it off so you don't forget, and pop the whole thing in there. That little slightly warm environment will help. Even up on top of the oven if you have it on. Anywhere that's a little bit warm, even outside in the sun if it's a nice sunny day, something like that. But these will really help to insulate that heat anyway. You'll see it'll start to burst at the seams as it's getting ready, and then it's ready for that next stage to be knocked down and shaped into balls. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So for me, because I'm making these at night time, I've already done a batch today, and I don't really want to be up waiting for these to prove and going in the oven and pulling them out at 10 o'clock. So once I've done this first stage, I'm going to wrap this up in the mat, I will shape them tonight, but as an alternative, I could just wrap that wrapped ball of dough into the fridge, and it will just have a slow first proof overnight, and then I could do all the shaping and making tomorrow. So if you are really time poor and you don't have a big amount of time to spend doing all this, you can certainly use your time smartly like that and do one stage, put it to rest, come back and do the other stage that way. Tonight I'll do the shaping, and then I'll put them in the fridge, and in the morning they're going to be ready to pretty much throw straight into the oven. So that'll be it. That's another different way that you can do it as well. All right, I've got 3.5 minutes to go on this. Before I put in my sultanas and pull it all out, is there any questions so far? Anything that you have been looking at and wanting to know about dough, about hot cross buns? For those of you who have made them before, do you have any variations that you've done? I'm going to shout out, I know, because I've done these with Tash before, I know Tash has some awesome variations that we've done, but I'm sure that Colette has a few up her sleeve as well. Who else? Who has a good flavour variation of hot cross buns that you've done before that you love buying from the shop?
It's very quiet this afternoon. Well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give it a go. One of the things that I often get asked about is that you said 500 grams, and many people who need to have specific instructions in front of them will be deterred by creating a large amount of the product plainly because they may be just making them for themselves or for a couple of people. Hot cross buns, I find, lend themselves to half the recipe or quarter the recipe, but they are also a really good thing to put into the freezer for time to come. And many of my customers haven't or hadn't considered doing that until they were actually told that it's okay.
That's a very good idea. A very, very good idea. We have in the chat box there, I have raspberry and white chocolate, apple and cinnamon, choc chip, caramel. That's pretty awesome. There are, when you look on Cookie Doo, there's a few different ones. There's a brioche one, chocolate one, apple and cinnamon. There's quite a few different variations as well. So you can get really creative and a bit fun with these.
Colette
has...
That's a brioche one I made last night.
Yum.
Yeah, camera there. Half eaten.
Mine took them to school today, ate them this afternoon. All right, I've got 40 seconds left on here. I'm just going to tip these sultanas in through the top. All right. I'll let this knead finish off as that tosses it around. Now, once I get into the shaping of these and rolling them into balls, these are called a little bowl scraper. You get them from the mix shop. They cost maybe $5. They're really, really cheap. When it comes to your dough work, these are so, so handy just for breaking off those pieces of dough, scraping around your thermomat and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be using this tonight. And I'll go next. This is going to take me through these steps. So dough, move you over here so you can see me. All right, dough straight out onto here and give this a little twist at the bottom, and it's going to pretty much pull out these last little bits. If you find that your dough is a little bit sticky, you can add a little bit extra flour just to your hands or to the mat if you need to in order to shape it. And same thing as if it's a little bit dry, you can always add a bit extra oil, just a bit of olive oil. Rub it on your hands. You'll find the dough won't stick to you, and it will just help, with being able to play with it without getting all too messy. So I'm just going to very, very briefly knead these sultanas in a tiny bit. You can imagine if you're starting with your whole batch of sultanas here. Oops, you can't even see me. There we go. If you're starting with your whole batch of sultanas out, you've got a little bit of work to get them all kneaded in. It actually does a pretty good job in the Thermomix. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to leave that. I'm going to wrap this up in here. It's a little bit sticky, so I might add some flour in a minute. All right, I'm going to leave these all wrapped up. There we go. I'm going to pop that just there. I'm just going to quickly wash this off my hands and I'm going to play a little video for you. Well, Colette, are you able to play it from your end?
Okay.
If you would like to hit play, you can.
I can play. Hang on. How's it now? Yeah. Screen. Play. One sec. I just need to find it.
And I could see Brooks there said she proved in the fridge overnight once and it pushed open the fridge door in the middle of the night. Oh no. Yes, it will slow down the proving time, but they will still prove. You have to be a little bit careful.
Participant can now see my screen. So this is my children. Let's see. How are we going, everybody, with this sound?
None yet.
Hello, Colette here from
Yes.
the Feel Good Link. And today I'd like to share with you how I make my gluten-free hot cross buns. I have previously tried out different recipes, but I decided that I'm bringing you the gluten-free hot cross buns recipe from the Cookie Dough collection because every one of you has immediate access to this, given that you've got the Cookie Dough subscription. So what I am going to share with you though is that having gone through my cupboard, I found that some of the ingredients, I only have half of the ingredients. So what I will be doing today is I will only make half of the amount for the gluten-free hot cross buns, and hopefully this all will work out fine. Getting started with brown rice. So the recipe says 150 grams, but I'm using half of it. We will need to mill this for about 2 minutes. Let's have a look at our brown rice flour. That looks great. We are now adding orange zest. If you have orange zest, I don't. I have the zest of a lime and some zest of a lemon that I'll be adding. So the flavor will be a little bit uplifted. This, again, will be whisked up for a minute. That looks wonderful and it smells wonderful. I've already added my milled millet, which is the next step. And with that, we're going to also have some dried instant yeast, about 190 grams of arrowroot flour. But remember, my arrowroot flour needs to be cut in half because I'm halving the recipe. The best product that I find in any supermarket for arrowroot flour will be this, and it is about half of the packet here. Good news, we've got the scales, so you don't really have to do any thinking here. Wonderful. Moving on, half a teaspoon of salt, some ground cinnamon, and here's a little tip. If you're happy to just add cinnamon or any other powder by the teaspoon, grab the teaspoon. But we've got these 3 little dots and we can activate the scales while we're inside a recipe. And if you're not sure and you don't want to use a spoon, go for about 4 to 6 or half a teaspoon. And I like cinnamon, and that's why it's about 6 for me. Pressing the cross will get me back into the recipe, and then I can proceed. We have the same for nutmeg. I'm going to just freestyle it here now. Be careful with nutmeg. That can often bring the flavor into a really strong direction. If you like it, excellent, go ahead. But if you're not too fond of nutmeg, then either leave it out or just don't quite use as much as the recipe says. We have about half a teaspoon of cloves. 25 grams of raw sugar. And here, as most of you would know, you have the opportunity to drop the sugar levels even further down. So if you're on a bit of a regime and you want to work with the least amount of sugar, replace raw sugar with monk fruit sugar or other items. Or just don't use this type of sugar at all. And some psyllium husk, which is a bit of fiber, and that will bind our dough together. We're now going to combine for 10 seconds. This smells even better. A little bit darker now because of the clove and the nutmeg. And now we're adding the wet elements. An egg, about 100 mils of milk. Water. Vegetable oil. And it says some mixed peel. I don't generally keep that in the house because it's usually only used in around Christmas time. So I don't have that. Mixed peel mixed with sultanas. Sultanas is something I have all the time. And my guys are not too fussed with that kind of stuff anyway. So I'm not going to use this much of it. Just about 60 grams or so. Put in something rather than nothing. And currants, same thing. I'm just going to go with my preference here now. Insert the measuring cup and we let this be mixed for 10 seconds. I repeated this mixing process a couple of times and now I'm emptying my mix into a glass bowl for you all to see how moist this mix is. If you've never done gluten-free doughs before, one of the things you will have to get used to is the fact that you are not a bad chef or baker. Gluten-free mixtures always end up looking a little bit more moist, which there's nothing wrong with. So you are on the right track when your dough looks a little bit like this. Remember, I've only produced half of this mix, but it's only going to be me who is using gluten-free hot roast buns this year. Place this into the fridge and wait for possibly a couple of hours just to let it set and to let the flavors really get through the dough. After about a couple of hours, I shape the dough into little balls and place them into the wrappers, and also drawn little crosses so that pouring over the white fluid is going to be a little bit easier. This is going to be left for another half hour or so before it goes into the oven. In the meantime, we are preheating the oven to about 180 or 200 degrees, depending on how strong the oven operates. And we're creating the white fluid. So we've got some of the gluten-free flour mix, which you can make up yourself. It could be millet, it could be rice flour, it could be chickpea, absolutely up to you. But you want it relatively light if you want a white color. And we're adding some water as well. So from my experience, I wouldn't want to put too much water in, because otherwise this becomes a little bit too fluidy, and it makes pouring it in onto the hot cross buns a little bit harder. Once you have your mix finished, you can pour it into one of these Thermomix piping bags or into one that you might have. If you don't have something like that, I've prepared it in a Ziploc bag where I'm going to push everything into one corner, and I'm going to draw a really, really small hole. And now you want to be careful and quick at the same time to pour these over your hot cross buns. That's that done. And this is how they go into the oven for about 25 to 28 minutes, unless you have a really good oven. It might take you less, or it might take you longer. You need to check that for yourself. These hot cross buns want to be really nice and brown. And yes, we shall see what these ones turn out like. And for our last part, we need to consider the glaze. You can use lemon juice, you can use lime juice. I did find some orange juice, so I'm going to use the orange juice. And on the caster sugar, again, here's your choice of sugar. I'm just going to follow the recipe because that's what I have. And I'm reducing the amount of sugar, so from 30 grams instead of 50. And now we leave this to combine without the measuring cup for about 5 minutes on speed 2. Smells good. After 5 minutes of cooking, you can pour the glaze back into the measuring cup. And now we want to make sure that we put it on over the hot cross buns, fresh out of the oven, so that it can settle and so that it can dry. It looks really good, I can tell you. It smells really good. And I just want to say something for those of you who have a really big need to do things gluten-free for health reasons mostly, or to help others in your household. It is a slightly different flavor. Yes, of course it is. But to be able to do something rather than to have no alternative is definitely a great thing to strive for when you have a condition to deal with. And I am always quite happy when I can facilitate that for myself and for some of my clients and customers. I hope you see the glaze, and happy thermomixing. Hopefully this helped. And any questions, please come back to me. Colette's Feel Good Mix. Bye.
Awesome. What a good video.
Huh?
I said, what a good video.
Oh, it makes me laugh. It's
Awesome.
very different from doing something live, plainly because you are constantly trying to make sure that everything is in the camera and that you say the right things, and then you end up speaking slowly.
Well, I think you did
But
a very,
is there
very good job.
Is there anyone of you guys who has had a go at gluten-free? I would love to hear. Is there anyone who needs to have a go at gluten-free? Yeah. Anyone? Nobody.
Everyone's good.
Everyone's good. Oh, well.
We one year I played around a little bit with variations, and I can't remember how many, but we did gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, all sorts of different ones. I couldn't believe how much variation you can put on a hot cross bun. Yeah, flavor changed a lot between them all, but it was absolutely crazy. And just to think, you know, we ended up doing a class inclusive of pretty much anyone with any dietary requirement, just by being able to, you know, and it was during COVID, we didn't have to go to the shop and buy a whole lot of stuff. It was just, you know, using what we had and changing up. You didn't have something, subbing it out for something else, and just using, you know, all the different grains and seeds and things you needed in order to make the different doughs and come up with them. So it was really cool.
I wonder how it would go with caramelized onions now that we can do that with the chicks, you know?
I don't know. I haven't thought of those. All right, here is my dough pulled out of the Thermomix. I've just seen I've added a little bit extra flour on it because it was still a bit sticky. Now, depending on how much dough experience you have, if you want to get your kids involved in things like that, you can get some pretty awesome, pretty wacky looking shapes here. And it certainly takes a little bit of practice. So don't knock yourself up the first time that you do them. But if you're wanting to get some tips around making them look like they've come out of the shop, I weigh for this mixture about 80-gram balls out. You can, depending, you know, on how you want to do it, you can weigh your whole blob of dough and then break it up. Say I want 12 rolls, that's how much I want, or I want 16, whatever it might be. I'm just going to bring up here my scales. Oops, wrong one. Bring up here my scales. And weigh these out. So roughly 80 grams. This will give you about 12 to 15, depending on your size. I think I got 15 out of it this morning. But depends. Some of you might get a little bit less, depends on it all. But you get a nice big tray full of them. Considering at the shops you get 6 in a package. They're pretty good numbers. So basically break off a ball. To shape them, you can hold it in your hand and you can take the edges and stretch them down and tuck them in. So sort of spinning it around, tucking them in. This is giving that dough sort of the stretch, but also it's tucking all the sultanas in. Again, this is the fiddlier, finer things of it, but if you want them to look and taste and feel like they do at the shops, these are the little things you need to do. So the sultanas that are out sitting on the surface will sort of burn in the oven. They'll come up all bubbly and not as nice. So if you can tuck them all in, they'll feel much nicer. And then to just finish off the roll shape, if you can sort of tuck your hand around a bit like you're holding a mushroom, so tighter at the bottom and then a bit of looser room at the top for them to breathe and get bigger, you basically just roll it around and you're trying to tuck all those bottoms in and get that bowl, get the whole ball of dough really, really circular. So again, the first time you do this, you might have to do it for a little bit. You might have to adjust it. But as you get better at it, you just do it for a second and you'll see there you've got pretty much a perfect dough ball with no little bit sticking out. It's nice and smooth all the way around. And then it's good to pop onto your tray. I'll do one more. So I'm just going to cut off 80 grams. Lay it on here, 80 grams, nearly on the dot. Another way to do this is fold it back towards you. I saw this explanation. I thought it was fantastic. Hold your dough here and you're going to go arms in, legs in, and then just fold any extra bits and that's pretty much done. So you're just wanting to pull all of it up, sides up, however you need to think about that, arms and legs, whatever it might be, until you have all of your bits up the top or at the bottom, depending on how you're doing it, and then roll it over, and that's your little ball that we just had last time. You can do it either way, whatever's going to suit you, remembering that if you want to just tuck all of these sultanas in, you can just keep on going around, tucking them in. It will feel really funny the first time that you do this. Don't worry if you can't get them perfect. Just keep playing with them. And by the time you've done a whole dozen, you'll be amazed at how much better they look. And by your third or fourth or fifth batch, by next Easter, they'll be looking absolutely perfect. And that's a little ball. So this is by far the most hands-on part of the process, is just getting in and rolling out and shaping all of these. Now, I'm using, obviously, one of our nice rose gold baking trays from the mix shop. We do these beautiful oven tray liners, basically like a big piece of baking paper that's reusable, so I can just wipe this off at the end. If not, you want to obviously line your baking tray with some baking paper or something similar. This will make a pretty much perfect batch to fit in this tray. This is the large tray. So I'll just line them all up right along, fill my tray up. You can spray them with water then. They need to go and prove and basically double in size so that they look pretty much the size that you're going to be buying them from the shop or ready to eat. So they will prove up to that size. They're only small now and they will double in size. Again, they need to be at that sort of warm temperature if you can. If you spray them with oil, it'll prevent them from drying out, but basically just leave them alone and let them grow. You've got to give them that time. That's what gets you that nice fluffy dough. Now, when they're ready to put in the oven, just like you saw with Colette, you make your cross mixture. In this recipe, it is just water and plain flour. You can put a little bit of sugar in there if you want it sweet, and you pipe it on. So these are the reusable mix shop, disposable mix shop bags that we have, piping bags. I have a whole set of these, but as you saw, a Ziploc bag works really well as well. Whatever you have there in terms of the piping bag, pipe your crosses on and pop them into the oven. These only take about 20 minutes in the oven, and then they're ready for that glaze. And the glaze for this recipe is just sugar and water. So it's really, really simple. 3 minutes just to make it nice and syrupy, and a pastry brush just to brush them on. Again, this one's just one from the mix shop, but just brush them over the top when they're done, and they're ready then pretty much to eat. Mine don't usually have time to cool on the tray, but they can cool on the tray. And this is what they will look like at the end. Now, every year I do this with my first batch, and I don't make the cross mixture thick enough. I think that it's thick enough and it isn't, and then I learn and make them thicker. So you'll see how my crosses have cooked into the buns a little bit on these ones, and it is just that thickness of the cross mixture. So when you do yours, make sure that they are, when you first pipe it on, that mixture sticks up a little bit. Maybe not necessarily with the gluten-free ones, but certainly with these ones, your mixture needs to be thick enough that it's quite hard to pipe out, and it sits just a bit, stays that sort of line up on top of the dough to leave you with that piped on look. Otherwise it will sink in a little bit like these. But I'll break one open. So these were made this morning. Like anything that's homemade, without all of the additives of the shops, they don't stay as fresh for quite as long. Ones at the shop you can usually keep, for days on end. These are best to be eaten within the day or within 2. Tomorrow we'll probably heat these up or toast them and have them for breakfast, but you can see that inside they're absolutely beautiful, nice and light and fluffy, and yeah, perfect for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between. So that is our hot cross buns. What do you think? Who's ready to go and make them? Yeah. What I'll do is I will we'll pop this recording onto YouTube, so you can go back and watch it. You'll see on our YouTube channel that we do have last year's classes as well, if you want to watch very, very similar, but a slightly different one. But I'll send you through this recipe, and we'll link in the gluten-free one as well. So if you want to just exactly what I did tonight, you can. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, please let us know. We have a little group called the Life Changers Community, and it's sort of like a customer group for all of you guys. So if you do cook these, and whether they work or whether they don't work, put a photo in there and we can all see what they look like. Give you tips if you need tips with them, or share with us how good they worked. But it's really nice to see. We all love to see what you guys are doing, and we run these things because we want you to get more out of your Thermomix. We want you to make different things at home. To let us know whether they worked and what tips were great and that sort of a thing. Has anybody got any questions before we finish up? No. Who's going to make them? Put your hand up or put it in the chat. Michelle is, that's good. Who else? Gonna have a try. Pop it in the chat. Come on, don't be shy. Who's going to try them? You've seen how easy they are. You give them a go. Vicky's going to try them. Brooke's going to try them. Awesome. Awesome. I hope that you all do go and have a go. But if you have any more questions, please ask. Otherwise, I'm going to turn our recording off